Posting this is very hard to do, because what happened still gives me jolts and makes me wake up in a cold sweat to this day. However, because of the things that have happened really recently, I need to tell the world. So here it goes. When I was on my gap year, about 2 years ago, I took a trip to Australia with my best friend. I won't name him out of respect for him and his family. Anyway, we spent about a month or so there, traveling and visiting different areas. We visited all the usual sites, Sydney, Great Barrier Reef, and the like. Towards the end of our trip, we had done everything in Melbourne, but we still had a few days before we had to travel to the airport in Canberra. We felt like doing some camping and decided the rural Tasmania would be a good spot. We knew a lot of it was nearly untouched and very beautiful. We took the ferry that same night and rented a car. We drove the car away from any large towns, and we decided to stop on a dirt road in the forest and scout for a good spot around there. My friend shouted to me, and I came to see what he had found. It was a small grassy bank next to a large stream. It was perfect. It was a place only with a few small trees, so it wasn't cluttered. I set up my tent and he set up his around 6 feet from mine. We roasted some hot dogs over the fire and then went to our separate tents. When I got into my sleeping bag, I noticed the ground was quite lumpy. I tried to get comfortable, but I couldn't drift off to sleep. Then I heard it. I heard something trudging around not too far from the tent. The footsteps were extremely heavy, and there were long gaps in between them. Like there was one footstep, and then there was a pause of a full second in between them. I felt chills running down my spine as the footsteps got closer to our campsite. I tried to calm myself down, convincing myself it must be my friend or a Tasmanian devil or something. I fell asleep that night to the sound of the footsteps ringing in my ears. The next day, I asked my friend if he heard anything the night before. He said he hadn't. We marked the pathway to our spot by hanging a frying pan in a tree on the road, then took the car out to the nearest town to do some sightseeing. We went into a small tavern, and I asked an old man what was the largest animal they had around the area. "The largest thing we've got around here are the wallabies," he told me. A wallaby definitely couldn't make the footsteps I heard. We spent most of the day in town, and when it started to get dark, we headed back to the campsite. We boiled some pasta over a fire and headed to bed. I found a comfier spot in the tent and fell asleep in a matter of seconds. I awoke much later feeling groggy. I turned over and was glad that I could not hear the footsteps. Then I heard the most gut-wrenching assault on the ears sound I have ever heard. It sounded like a crowbar being dragged across metal. It came from off in the distance. "What the fuck was that?" I heard my friend say. As soon as the silence seemed to have settled once again, I heard something off in the distance. Footsteps. Fucking footsteps. They were coming our way, and they were just as heavy and spaced out as before. When they got close, they began to circle our campsite. Long, drawn-out steps, just circling. After about 5 minutes, I heard the footsteps come between the two tents. Then I heard a softer sound. It sounded like something sliding down the side of my friend's tent. When I realized it was the sound of the tent being cut, it was too late. I heard my friend scream and something heavy being dragged along the ground next to the tent. I rushed outside to see the outline of my friend in the pitch black being dragged into the forest. Then I saw what was dragging him. A dark figure was outlined against the shape of the trees. It was tall and thin. I looked around for anything to use as a weapon. I looked over to see the figure of my friend manage to stand up. Sorry if my writing is shaky or has bad grammar from this point. I'm struggling to write this. I heard a sound come from the struggle. It was a loud, sickening sound. I heard something crunch. Oh God, it was the most horrifying sound I have ever heard. When the sound was gone, I saw the shape of my friend fall in a crumpled heap. I doubled back round the tent and felt around for what I wanted to find. When I felt the charred piece of wood, I grabbed it and ran around the tent, not hesitating as I lobbed the wood at the creature. I heard it collide with it, and the thing hissed in pain. Then I heard its footsteps going off into the woods. When I was sure it was gone, I went and grabbed the torch from my bag. I shined it down onto my friend and gagged. There was a huge cut straight along his chest. It was open and bleeding heavily. I could see ribs poking out of the literal fucking ravine in his chest, and when I shined the light over to the left, I saw something moving. It was his heart. His fucking heart was fucking mauled. After recovering from the shock a little, I picked him up by the back and legs and lifted him into the car, half of my fingers keeping the torch in full view. When I got to the car, I found what caused the metallic scraping sound. A large claw mark was embedded in the car. I opened the door and placed him inside, then got in the front. Before I drove off, I scanned the woods with my torch. Something was standing a few trees in. It ran off before I could get a good look at it, but I know it was the thing that sliced my friend. The one thing I saw was a long skeletal claw stained with blood before it vanished out of range of my flashlight. I drove into town, and a helicopter was called in to take my friend away. When we got to the hospital, it had been too late for ages. The claw had gone straight through his heart. He was dead. I'm only sharing this now because of what I found in my garden yesterday. I was out watering the plants when I saw something on my shed wall. It was a long, deep claw mark. Today's No Sleep story is from username Sterbai. New videos every week. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And sweet dreams.